Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Millennium Pod, a Star Wars podcast by me, Ari, at ari.in.space on TikTok and at the Millennium at Millennium Pod _ on Twitter and Instagram. I changed my handle and I got confused, but it will be in the description. Today I'm super excited because I have not one, not two, but three incredible guests. Super, super excited. So why don't you guys go around, share with us your name, your pronouns, where we can find you on social media, and all of these lovely humans have their own podcasts, and I would love to hear about those as well. So let's just go in the order I see on my screens. We'll go with Kev. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Kevin. You guys probably know me as Kev. My pronouns are he, him. And what was the next name? Podcast? Plug the podcast.
Yeah, plug your
Okay.
podcast.
My podcast is called Back to Jakku. You can find it currently on YouTube and Spotify. I'm working on getting it on Apple Podcasts at the moment. Next episode it's in development at the moment, so that should be coming out pretty soon. I'm super excited about that. Thank you again for having me on. I'm excited to
Of course.
talk.
If you guys have been out there listening, you may recognize Kev. Obviously, you probably know him from TikTok anyway. But he was on the Kylo Ren episode, so check that out if you haven't, because it was a really fun one. Moving on to Camilla. I'm introducing you guys for you. You're welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, my name is Camila. Pronouns are she, her. You can find me on TikTok at Boricua Wookie. And podcast recently started a Star Wars narrative podcast, which is called Beings of the Galaxy. It takes you on a journey guided by host Lannis Locke to discover the everyday slices of life that give greater meaning to our purpose in the galaxy. You can find it wherever podcasts are streaming, and also on Instagram at Beings of the Galaxy Pod. And yes, I'm super excited to chat. So thanks for having me back.
Of course, yeah. And once again, Camilla is also a familiar voice from the politics episode, which was also really fun. So check that out too if you haven't. And then finally, Ollie, our new addition.
I know I'm so excited to join the Millennium Pod family. My name is Ollie. My pronouns are they, them. My social media is at Ollie Fresh. It's with a PH. I'm on pretty much every website. And I am a co-host of the podcast RuPalp's Pod Race. It is a queer Star Wars podcast, and we basically have been wrapping up episodes of The Bad Batch, and we have a bunch of fun segments. We are at RuPalp's Pod Race on pretty much every social media platform, so check us out.
Yeah. Ollie's podcast is really quite hilarious. If you need a laugh, I'm laughing out loud all the time when I'm listening. It's so funny. So this week's episode, I guess, is going to be the first of a two-part Bad Batch episode with the same people, and basically we're going to break it down so far. So as of recording this, we've seen up to episode 8, so spoilers up to episode 8 of the Bad Batch. We're going to just talk about it so far, how we're feeling. I'm feeling bad, but how we're feeling in general, and then go ahead and we're going to kind of make predictions, and then I guess in 8 weeks or so we'll get together again and see if anything we predicted panned out. But I'm pretty excited. But to just kind of get things rolling, I think we should go around and say our favorite member of the Bad Batch. I know for some of us this may have been a difficult thing, but yeah, so whoever wants to go first, just go ahead, tell us your favorite member and why.
I can go first.
Sounds good.
So I had a very difficult time choosing this because it's like choosing between my children. I love all of them dearly. When I watched the Bad Batch episode or arc in Clone Wars, I was like, they're fine. But now I'm like, I would maybe die for any of them if they asked me to. At this point, it's sort of a choice between Echo and Hunter. I have a very deep connection to the Rookies episode from Clone Wars, so seeing Echo again made me feel crazy, and it's really nice to see him being characterized, because in the Clone Wars, a lot of the perspective you get on Echo is through someone else. So initially, a lot of what you see, in terms of Echo's characterization is through Fives, and then later it's through Rex in season 7. So now you're really seeing him become his own character and tell his own story from his perspective. And I love that. But I also love Hunter because he is the dad of the Dad Batch. So, again, it's very hard to choose. It's like picking between my children.
Fair enough. That's a good answer. I like that. Who wants to go next?
I'll take it next. So I'm probably in the minority of Bad Batch fans of who my favorite member is. But from day one, from the first episode of season 7 of the Clone Wars, it's been Crosshair. I just think Crosshair is the coolest, coldest dude in the galaxy. And I've always liked the sniper character. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, I always think the sniper is just the coolest. And I love the way Crosshair is just kind of no nonsense, the way he kind of carries himself seriously. The toothpick is cool. And, I just really like Crosshair. So I was very emotionally hurt this past episode, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, that's we got this episode. We really saw the cold side of Crosshair. But that's cool. You're right. I think you are in the minority, but I think that's cool. Every clone deserves some love. So, Camila, do you want to go?
Yes, I would love to go. My favorite member of the Bad Batch is actually the newest member of the Bad Batch. So it's that sweet child Omega. I am a sucker for characters like Omega who are innocent and hopeful and optimistic and are stepping out on these wide, grand journeys. And I'm just so excited for her character arc, and I can't wait to see where she goes and how she grows and how she develops. And she's just, her theme, man, is so beautiful and stunning, and truly every time Omega's on the screen, my heart just gets so happy. So it's definitely Omega. And this past episode also was a little rough for Omega fans. Just, I think every fan in general. It's a rough episode, but excited to talk about it.
Yes. Oh, that's such a wholesome answer. Omega is so precious, and you're right, her theme is incredible. Oh my gosh, all the music in this show is just wow. I guess I have to answer this question, even though it's difficult. I agree with Ollie. It's really hard to choose. If I had to choose, though, I think I'd pick Wrecker as of right now, because I just love how much he's like stepped into this role of like uncle vibes, and just like how much he cares about Omega. Like, obviously Hunter does too, but he's more in that like strict kind of father figure role, whereas we get to just see Wrecker being so having so much fun. And episode 7 really wrecked me, pardon the pun, but it was rough. But yeah, I think it would be Wrecker with Hunter as a close second, just because the dad vibes are immaculate. So I guess now I want to know everybody's favorite moment from the show so far. If you can't pick one, that's okay. You can kind of just say a few. I'll go first this time. My favorite is at the end of episode 7, when Wrecker was like apologizing to Omega for what happened. And you could just like feel his remorse. Oh my gosh, I was like bawling that whole episode. But just that exchange between them, and when she was just like, it's fine, like it wasn't you, I totally understand. And then she pulled out the snack. Oh my gosh, so cute. Yeah, wholesome 101. I would probably not rewatch that episode anytime soon, but I would rewatch that scene 100%. Yeah, so whoever wants to go next, I would love to hear your favorite scene.
I can go next. I just want to say about Wrecker, I did not care about Wrecker that much during the Clone Wars arc, but this show is making me fall in love with him. It's giving him so much more character, and he's that fun uncle. And the scene from this past episode with Omega when they're trying to defuse the bomb, I just love that so much. I love their dynamic and their relationship. It's amazing. But my favorite, so when you sent the Google Doc the other day with the questions that asked the favorite Bad Batch moment, I was having a really hard time thinking of one, but then I was like, "What? This shouldn't be hard." It's there an echo in here? Yes. What? I'm Echo. Dave Filoni's probably been waiting a decade to tell that joke, and I'm so glad that he did. It's just funny. Like, that's quintessential Star Wars humor right there, and I am living for it. But then another moment that comes to mind is in episode 7 when Rex comes into the show, and when he kind of like they're talking about their chips, and then they say they haven't got their chips out, and then you can see how like he reacts to that because he's been through some stuff. He knows like what the chips can do, and I loved seeing that side of Rex, kind of like his PTSD almost, or his trauma from the previous Clone Wars episodes. I just think that was a really cool moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. I guess I should also mention, like, seeing Rex filled me with immense joy, as well as I'm sure it did everybody. But yeah, they're doing such a good job of just like rehashing Order 66, I guess, which is irritating, but also really good. And I love it. Okay.
Yeah, I agree that the Order 66. So, what I was kind of worried about with this show was that Order 66 was going to become a little dry. Not that as a clone lover and as a prequels lover, Order 66 was ever going to not be sad. But I did worry, like, rehashing it a bunch of times from different perspectives might get old. Hasn't gotten old yet, so they do keep finding fresh ways, and I think seeing it from the perspective of the clones and from inside the Empire is one of my favorite parts of the show, because this is an era of Star Wars that we have very little about, is like the first 5-ish years between the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire. So seeing the transformation from all of the clones have nicknames and the Jedi are the general to these are our leaders are recruited soldiers, and all of the clones and all of the soldiers go by numbers instead of names. So it's the depersonalization. And in my actual favorite moment of the show, which was the episode with Fennec, I loved when she single-handedly took out Wrecker and Hunter. Girl boss moment. We love that. But I thought in that episode we really did see, and in Cut and Run, we really did see a unique perspective of people inside of the new Empire being like, okay, well, this is a bit of a change, but it's basically just the Republic with more rules, and we were just at war, so it makes sense. It's a very odd transition to see. So I really like that aspect that the show is giving us.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love this era. Like, it sounds weird to say that, like Empire era. Ooh. But I am really excited to just keep getting more content, because like you said, we don't have a lot, and it's really, I just find it so fascinating to think about like why people were okay with the Empire just waltzing in and doing whatever. And Camila and I talked about this on our other episode. But it's just like, well, they were just at war, right? So it's so neat to people being like, yeah, sure, give me a number, I don't care, whatever, at least we're not at war. So yeah, I'm so excited about more early Empire content. Camila, let's hear your moments.
I will. And yeah, I just want to also agree with what you and Ollie are saying. You know, I'm always down with my Star Wars politics, and so that stuff is just, it makes me so happy that they're exploring it. And I'm excited for us to talk about it more. But my favorite moment in the Bad Batch comes from episode 1, and it is with our wonderful Omega when she's sitting in the Marauder and they're jumping into hyperspace and just seeing the lights dazzling in her eyes. It is, oh man, the scene made me so emotional. It gave me chills, just because I think it's just such a picture of Star Wars fans and us like taking in Star Wars either for the first time or for the millionth time, and how much joy it brings. And you know how George Lucas talks about Star Wars being for kids. On one level, absolutely, it's absolutely for actual children. But on the other hand, I think it's for those of us who still have that childlike mindset and that childlike attitude when we approach Star Wars. And so it's that moment for me is just such a picture that childlike hopefulness that we can each bring to Star Wars. And so it means a lot to me.
That was such a powerful moment because I mean, when she has the star's reflection in her eyes, that was basically like we all looked at Star Wars at like that at some point when we were first introduced to it, and that just really captures that essence, and it was just incredible.
And what I also like about that is that Omega seems to be one of the few characters who, one, actually behaves like a child, like a real child, and not a TV child where it's like, oh, they do dumb stuff because they're a kid. But also she has this childlike wonder that she brings that keeps it fresh in a show that would otherwise be almost unbearably dark.
So dark. You're absolutely right. Like thank the maker for Omega for us to not be just like devastated every single. I mean, she kind of this past episode kind of devastated, but still, yes, 100% agree.
Yeah, this past episode was I can't keep watching this show. It's so stressful and upsetting. But yeah, that's actually, I'm glad you went last because my first like official question was going to be, about Omega. I just want to chat about her. Like, who is this amazing, perfect child? And like, do we have any ideas why she was created? I mean, we know the Kaminoans like obviously really want her back because now they've sent 2 bounty hunters after her. But like, why? Ollie, you look like you're ready to say something.
I am, because I have been thinking about this since I watched the episode, because in the episode, it is implied that Nala Se hired Fennec, and Lama Su, the Prime Minister, who I hate, hired Cad Bane. And something that Lama Su said was that we don't need them alive, we just need them intact. So he specifically said intact. So I'm like, a lot of what I thought about Omega, now I'm like, oh, well, if they don't need her alive, that changes things. Because I thought it was going to be something like maybe she specifically has an ability that's like something they didn't plan for.
Right.
But now I'm like, if it's in her DNA and not in her mind, what does that mean? What's going on here?
Yeah, I think I was so traumatized I didn't even realize that. So I'm glad you brought it up. But yeah, that's even darker. Wow.
Yeah. I love a show that says not only we don't need the child alive, but also says, yeah, aim for the child. I'm like, yeah, let's give the child a break here, Dave.
Yeah, I think I mentally checked out by that point. I was like, I can't, not 2 dark episodes in a row. Like, come on. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I don't know a lot about like DNA and what could be in Omega's DNA that would be so valuable, but like, I guess probably for more cloning purposes, right? Like, we know the Kaminoans are big into cloning. I don't know. Yeah. And so then my other question is gonna be like, does she have powers or a mutation? But again, it's like, well, if they don't actually need her, maybe not. But also, if that mutation or whatever is in her DNA, then I don't know, you guys. It's
going to be really interesting to see where they go with that.
Yeah.
Because I think we all have our theories and everything, but I have a feeling it's going to be something that like nobody expects.
Yeah.
It's because obviously the Kaminoans, they don't, and I think they said it in the show, they don't create without a purpose. So Omega obviously has a purpose. It's just, what is that purpose going to be? I don't know. I'm super excited to find out because I think it could be literally anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I feel like they almost like really haven't given us enough to actually create solid theories on. Like, all we know is that they created her and they want her back at all costs, right? So it's kind of like, who knows?
Yeah. Doesn't in the past episode, don't they mention something about a contingency plan, or am I making it up?
Well, that's been a theme in the first episode. They talked about that too, is that they have a contingency plan in case the Republic is like, we don't need your regular clones anymore, or the Empire, sorry. So I think that Omega is that contingency plan, and the theory that I've seen thrown around a lot is that Omega is a clone designed not for warfare, so a clone designed to fill other positions. And what we've seen from Omega so far is that she is a very fast learner. And we see that specifically in, I believe it is episode 3, where they fight the monster that eats electricity.
Yeah.
Where she watches Hunter track, and then 3 seconds later, she starts tracking the monster. And I think that it's just the idea that she adapts really well could be something. And I'm more inclined to believe that than the idea that she has like a power. But I'm not, again, like there's not quite enough solid evidence for me to feel like that is the case.
Yeah. I lean toward force sensitivity because I had a conversation a few weeks ago with a friend of mine, Bailey, who is on TikTok at @tinkerbale_. And we were talking about Omega, and she was talking about how obviously Omega is the last letter of the Greek alphabet, and there's been talk of her being the last clone. And so she was talking about how she could see Omega being the last attempt to make a force sensitive clone. And in my mind, how that makes sense to me is that it could be a way for the Kaminoans to be like, don't get rid of us. We can make force sensitive clones. This is an asset to your new empire, which they haven't brought up in a while. And I can't wait to hear them say it again. And then also, I do think that connects into the future in Mando, because don't we see like that scientist with a Kaminoan insignia on his shirt or whatever, and so obviously he's doing something with force sensitive cloning. So in my mind, that it makes sense to me for Omega to be a force sensitive clone, but having been the Kaminoans doing this on their own as their contingency plan to still be relevant for the Empire and not be completely shut out.
And Project Harvester is the project that involves force sensitive kids. And I mean, Palpatine hired Cad Bane in the Clone Wars to go get force sensitive kids, so it would not be a far stretch for the Kaminoans to be like, yo, your leader wants some force sensitive kids, we'll do our best to have you covered.
Right. Yeah, that's quite interesting. Because I had heard people saying, oh, maybe she's force sensitive, and I was like, I don't know, but that's like actually like sound logical reasoning for why they would want to make a force sensitive clone, because I mean, you're right, at this point the Empire and what's his face, I keep forgetting his name, the guy that
Rampart.
Freaking I'm never gonna remember that. He doesn't want clones, right? So I mean, you could totally see it like last ditch effort, we gotta stay going. Yeah, that's
I think it would be cool too that if they went with the force sensitive route, just to get that connection to Mandalorian with Dr. Pershing and Grogu, because I think that would be really cool to see them kind of tie these two projects together.
Yeah, it's kind of cool with all of the Disney projects right now. They kind of seem like they're all going to be like tied together, and we're going to have like this massive Star Wars universe that's like really coherent, which is pretty cool. But yeah. Okay, so the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about was kind of like the early rebel activity we might be seeing. I'm not sure. It hasn't been like made official, but I do feel like, Trace and Rafa are looking for some form of rebel cell potentially. I mean, we saw Saw Gerrera. He's still out there. We know he's active based on, other Star Wars material. And I also want to know, I'm pouring all the questions out at once, we can just talk about it. I also want to know what is our man Rex up to? Because I'm getting the vibe it's something rebel-ish, but we know from Rebels, the TV show, that he's not really involved in the rebellion at that point until they go and get him. So I want to know what happened. Like, Ollie's like so excited. Okay.
I know. I'm so sorry. I hate to dominate the conversation, but I have a very the theory that I have is that Rex starts working with some form of an early rebel cell, and then when Wolf and Gregor, whatever happens to them happens, he says, I need to get out and take my boys with me because we are not in a place to be fighting another war. And that's kind of what Rebels seemed like to me, is that it was like, yeah, we did fight, but now our war is over and we need to peace out. I do think that when Rex made that little call at the end of episode 7, I do think that it was Saw Gerrera, because Saw Gerrera is one of the only people outside of the former Republic that Rex knows and knows he can trust. Additionally, in Rebels, when Rex meets up with Saw Gerrera again, he is very much like, my old buddy, which is not necessarily something that you would tell someone who you met for like a month 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I was thinking about that, and I was like, because I love Bale so much, I was like, is he talking to Bale? I just am so desperate to see Bale in the show. But but no, I definitely think Saw Gerrera makes the most sense, especially when you look at Saw as his tactics and how he's all about oh my goodness, I don't know if you can hear the music that just started playing outside.
That's so fun.
Like mariachi music. Everything's fine.
They're celebrating Saw Gerrera.
Yeah, literally. They heard Saw and they're like, yes, celebrate. But sorry. Yes, I do think Saw makes the most sense, because I mean, Trace and Rafa talked about how the information on the tactical droid head is about how to take down clones, and it seems like a military operation, whoever wants the tactical head droid, and of all of the different rebel cells, Saw's cell or organization, the partisans definitely feel the most militaristic. And yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying, Ollie, about how Rex doesn't really know many other people, so it definitely makes the most sense that he's working with Saw.
Yeah, I like that theory. I think it would make sense because Rex and Saw obviously do know each other. I mean, when I was first watching the episode, my head immediately went to, oh, it's got to be either Wolf or Gregor, because obviously we know that's who Rex is with in Rebels. But does that make sense? Because like, I'm sure Wolf and Gregor are dealing with their own things. They probably still have their chips in.
So that's a good question, because in the episode when they're taking out Wrecker's chip, Rex is getting upset and they're like, what's wrong? And he's like, I've never been on this side of the surgery before, which makes me be like, there's no way that Rex would allow Wolf, specifically Wolf, but probably Gregor as well, because he probably knows Wolf better at this point. But there's no way he would allow either of them to go under the knife without him being there if he was aware of what was happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't know if it's gonna happen just because this isn't the Rex show, it's the Bad Batch. But Commander Wolf's my favorite clone, and I really want to see him and how he gets his chip out. But
he's Dave's favorite clone too, so you never know.
You never know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, all of Dave's self inserts have Wolf's in their name, because he's got Commander Wolf, and his character from Mandalorian's name is Trapper Wolf.
Yep.
That's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
We love that about Dave.
An icon, truly.
Yeah.
On brand.
Yes. I saw somebody, I don't remember, I think I was in Anna's live yesterday, Missing Ben Solo, and somebody said that Cad Bane was a Dave Filoni self-insert OC with the cowboy hat.
Literally.
I was like, it makes that checks out.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah. But I really hope we see Commander Wolf. I got my Commander Wolf hat on right now, and but unfortunately, I don't think that's not who Rex was talking to in that moment. Another thing about that scene too that I thought was interesting was how they called attention to when Hunter said, if you ever find yourself in a bind, you know how to reach us. And then Rex kind of nods his head. That, to me, that was like a Chekhov's gun. Like that's going to come back later. So I don't think that's the last time we're going to see Rex in the Bad Batch.
Well, this begs something else, that in the trailer for the Bad Batch, there is exactly one scene that we have not seen yet, and it takes place on Onderon, because it is the same set from Onderon in the Clone Wars. So I do think that there is going to be a point where I think something is going to happen to make the Bad Batch be like, oh, we should probably be helping the rebellion because the Empire is actually quite bad. And they're going to reach out to Rex or vice versa. And Rex is going to be like, yeah, Onderon's kind of messed up right now. We need your help. So I think there's going to be something there.
Another thing too that makes me think we're not going to see that this isn't the last time we see Rex is the Captain Rex Black Series figure they just came out with and the Vintage Collection figure. On his helmet, he has his little visor attachment, which he doesn't have that in episode 7. So either Hasbro doesn't know what they're doing, which wouldn't surprise me, and put on the visor attachment, or that means we're going to see Rex later in the season with that visor on his helmet. And
with the figure on, like in, I think it was Hasbro Plus's description of the figure, it said like, yeah, it also includes a viewfinder, which I'm like, oh, well, that's specifically a reference to something that's going to happen. And it would not be the first time that an action figure or whatever has given away something, as we all know with the Lego Crosshair set, which did say that Crosshair turned to the Empire like a week before the show came out.
I love when toys, low-key spoil the shows. It's great. But yeah, no, I'm actually okay, because when I watched it and watched Rex disappear into the mist, I was like, that's it. That's the last time we're ever going to see Rex. But no, it actually makes a lot of sense. And then I was in your live, Kev, and you mentioned whatever fancy term you used, where he said, if you ever need us, call. And I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. Because if him disappearing into the mist was the last time we ever saw him in like new content, I would have been very, very sad. But ideally, here's how I see this playing out that I think would be super, super cool, in my opinion, is, last few episodes is like a 3 or 4 episode arc of them, going to fight with the rebellion. And then it leaves us on this epic cliffhanger for hopefully a season 2, because I'm not ready for this to just be 1 season long, but I guess we'll see. I don't know, because it hasn't been confirmed either way, right? Like, we don't know if there's going to be. Yeah. So
I don't even think the number of episodes has been confirmed, has it?
It's 16 episodes.
It's 16.
Did they confirm that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
which is like a lot. I can't believe we have to go through this for 16 weeks.
I'm just like, I just remember after episode 3, just sitting in my room and saying, it's only episode 3. Are you kidding me? And they've already given us so much amazing content. And so many shows at this point, just in general, are already finished by 8 episodes. I mean, we've seen some of the Marvel shows that are finished after 6, and I'm like, oh, bless them for giving us 16. It's truly, what a treat. What an absolute treat.
It's like almost like, that's like a quarter of the year approximately. Mm-hmm. I know math. It's a lot. That's a long time though. It's a long time to suffer. Because I am suffering, you guys.
I would be a little surprised if you weren't at this point after that last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a time and a half. We'll get to that shortly here. But yeah, I think I did want to say, I forgot, and then I remember what I wanted to say actually, is that I do think it does make the most sense for who Rex is talking to if we assume it's a rebel cell, because he's really like the only other, or some we don't know, because he's really like the only rebel cell that's like kind of actually a thing right now. Because like based on the Ahsoka novel, Bail's cell doesn't really get formed until like at least a year, if not more, after Order 66. And I think we're still within that first year. But also time in Star Wars is kind of weird, and I don't really know. So yeah, I do think it's Saw, especially because Saw just keeps appearing everywhere in Star Wars. So he's literally
in everything.
Exactly. It doesn't really make sense for them to have him in everything and then just not in the Bad Batch. So I mean, I know we've already seen him, but I do think he's going to have a bigger role soon in the last half of the season.
Sure. I think what's interesting about the idea, like how we've all been talking about, the Bad Batch going to join the rebellion, and I think I think about how like the rebellion, as in like capital R rebellion doesn't really form in the way that we know it in the original trilogy until like not even in Rebels, it's like toward the end of Rebels, when they blow up Alderaan, that's when they're like, okay, maybe we should all like 100% unite. And so I'm really interested to see if they're going to explore the tension of these different rebel cells throughout the galaxy and where the Bad Batch line up most, because I do think Star Wars just loves rebellions in general and loves to reward rebels. And so I definitely think we see the Bad Batch joining the rebellion in some capacity. But the question is, like, what rebellion? What part of the rebellion are they joining? Saw? Are they going to Ryloth and hanging out with Cham and the Freedom Fighters, which we got that little preview with that episode title. Can't wait. Hera, where you at?
Baby Chopper,
so literally baby Chopper just causing chaos.
Oh my gosh, imagine if droids actually grew as organics do and there was actually like a small version of Chopper. That'd be terrifying. But also imagine Omega and Chopper together. Because they're like, Omega is like sweet and wholesome, but also chaotic. And then Chopper is just like war crimes and chaotic. So just the chaos would be incredible. And now I really want that. So Dave, if you're listening, I know the show's already made, but you can make some changes if necessary.
Yeah. Dave, please call us. We have ideas.
Yeah.
Dave, if you need consultants for this hypothetical season 2, we're ready. Yeah. And then the other thing, I liked seeing Trace and Rafa. I know the fandom was like, which is just really disappointing. But I actually liked seeing them. I thought for me, it added a bit to their characters, even though like I know they had a whole arc. But I don't know. I just liked seeing that, they took what they learned essentially from their arc in season 7 and are, using it to do good. And it was also just like, Ahsoka's legacy lives on.
Yes.
So yeah, I kind of hope we see them again. I know that's probably not the opinion of a lot of loud Star Wars fans on the internet, but I do hope we see them again, because I also like their dynamic with the Bad Batch. I just kind of thought it was funny.
When we went to Corellia that episode, I was kind of expecting to see either young Han and Kira, or like somebody else from Solo. So maybe Lady Proxima, or like Malak, the one of her, people. So I think it was almost weird that we went to Corellia and didn't see anybody we already knew, because this show is all about giving us characters that we already know. So when they said that they were going to Corellia, I'm like, oh, we're gonna see some people from Solo. But we didn't.
It's similar to how everyone, when they were like, oh, we're going to Braca, are we going to see Cal Kestis? But yeah, I also was like, oh, is young Han going to be here? Because basically the only thing I know about Corellia is that that's where Han was. But I agree. I have some conflicting feelings about the Martez sisters. Not because I think they're bad characters. I actually really like them. I think a lot of it is that they play into certain like, it's almost like you see this a lot with women characters, where people hate them for traits that if a male character had it, they would not hate them for as much.
Retweet.
Yep.
And my problem is, I think that there were some points where Rafa would say things to Trace and I'm like, oh, that's so rude. But then I'm like, but she is a very complex character, so I really like that. So it's like, even if you think they're annoying or you don't like them as characters or you don't like them as people, you can still say like, it's really interesting that we get to see women who are written differently, who are written not to fit into an archetype that already exists. So that's kind of where I feel on them. I would love to see them again.
Yeah, I agree, because I think a lot of the reason why I kind of disliked them in their arc was my own internalized misogyny, because again, like same as what you're saying, a lot of like I was like, why are you doing that? Why are you being like that? And then I was like thinking about it after, and especially after this episode, when I was like, oh, I actually like them more now. And I was like, you're right. If it was two male characters bantering like that and like being rude to each other, I would be like, that's funny. But for some reason, we're like conditioned in this society that like women aren't allowed to be tough and rude. So yeah, that's why I do kind of want to see them more, because I do think it's important to see, not just the Leias and the Padmes of the world. And again, like they're almost like, I mean, Star Wars does an okay job of having different female leads, but again, most of them do fit into that very much like Leia, like strong, but also like soft at the same time. Whereas like Rafa especially is just hard is the word I'm going to use to describe her. So I do hope we see them again, because like I said, I think it's important, because women aren't all the same. That's my feminist rant for the day.
Yeah. And I also love that like they weren't created, I think a lot of the women in Star Wars are created to serve a man's purpose, and they weren't. Like essentially they were created to serve Ahsoka's purpose. So that was cool to see women created to serve another woman's purpose, in her development. So that I really enjoyed that. But I what you were saying earlier, Ari, about showing the continuing legacy of Ahsoka, and how like truly the seeds that she planted in their lives, like teaching them how to do good, now they're carrying that on. And I love the end of their episode when Raph is talking with Hunter, and how she's like, how she asks Hunter, why are you giving us tactical droid head? And Hunter's like, it's the right thing to do. Like that is such, you see it's the right thing to do all over Star Wars. And I love seeing characters who are not doing the right thing learn how to do the right thing, and find like their internal moral compass somehow shifts into the direction of what the right thing to do is. And it's really great to see those two characters and how they've learned after the Clone Wars to do the right thing and to move into that path. And I also hope to see them again as well.
Yeah, that's such a good theme in Star Wars. Oh wow, Star Wars is amazing. My next question, which we already sort of answered, was do we think the Bad Batch is going to end up joining a rebel cell? Which I think we're all kind of in agreement, probably, maybe not like quite a cell necessarily, but in some capacity, the rebellion. And I wrote, if not, what do we think is the end game for these dudes? I swear, if y'all say they're gonna get Rogue One, I will be upset. But also, I do understand why people are saying that, even though it makes me want to punch myself in the face as a Rogue One stan.
As a fellow Rogue One stan, I feel that.
Yeah. I'm preparing to just be emotionally torn apart by the end of this series. Like it's like, didn't the Kevin Kiner, whoever does the music, didn't he like tweet that like the last episode is going to be very emotional? I'm not prepared.
He said that something along the lines of, I've never cried while writing the score to an episode. Which does not bode well. I do think I have a bit of a theory. A lot of my theories are based on something that happened in Rebels that was like a throwaway line. But I latched onto it because I'm crazy. Kanan, in the episode where they meet Rex and Gregor and Wolf, Kanan says that he was like, oh, well, the clones shot on us. And then later they were saying, oh, they were controlled by chips. And I was like, the only clones that know about the chips that would be able to convey that message to Kanan, who's been on the run and isolated, would have been Rex, Wolf, and Gregor, who Kanan obviously has not talked to, or it would have to be a wider message. So I am thinking last episode of season 1 of Rebels, I believe, where they go to the tower to transmit the message to the rest of the rebellion. I feel like the Bad Batch is going to have to be the clones who tell the world, like, hey guys, there's a whole chip situation going on right now. And then they get Rogue One while they're doing that.
I was so hopeful. I was like, yes, they're going to be part of the rebellion. And then there it was. You had to say it.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Man. Remember when we started? I think it's so funny how I think the majority of us, when we watched Clone Wars season 7, and we're like, so like we enjoyed the Bad Batch arc, just generally, oh, these are a fun group of clones, and then they announced the Bad Batch TV show, and everybody was like, oh yeah, more Star Wars content. It's gonna be a fun little, group of clones just running around the galaxy having adventures. And it is, but it's really not that. And we're all so attached. And it's just such a picture of how powerful like Star Wars storytelling is, that now we're just predicting in our minds them getting Rogue One and being absolutely devastated by it.
I can't. This is another thing too, is clearly shows that stuff that takes place after this era was all written before the Bad Batch was a thing and before it was confirmed. So I can't keep saying like, oh, well, it didn't happen. They weren't in Rebels or they weren't in any of the subsequent media. So they didn't show up there. So they must be dead, which is the theory that I think I and a lot of people are going off of, is if the Bad Batch was still alive during the Rebels timeline, there was no way that Rex would not be like, hey guys, what's up? Can you give us a hand? However, the more I think about it, and I think Camila said, the Rebels are very splintered right now. You don't really see them really solidify and team up until like the end of Rebels and the destruction of Alderaan. So it could make sense that the Bad Batch is still around and is working for the rebellion, but maybe for a different cell or in a different way. And Rex didn't call them because he was like, they've got their own stuff going on. So
Right.
I'm in this constant state of hopefulness. I'm expecting the worst, but hoping for the best.
Yep.
Plot twist, the Bad Batch actually joins Saw, and then it ends up getting Rogue One on Jeddah in Rogue One, and we just didn't
Why?
see them.
Why
I
would
could
you
have
say that?
gone the rest of my life without thinking about that.
Oh no.
Listen, I'm sorry to Ollie and Kev, but Camilla, I'm not sorry to you, because you put me through a lot of pain with your predictions so far. So I don't think that's probably a real thing, but
I also do like the idea of, again, I'm so sorry for being a rebel stan on main, but the idea that the Bad Batch was with the group that killed Callus's team is very a lot. That's just very funny to me.
Yeah, no, wait, Ollie, you bring up an interesting point, because I remember there was a lot of predicting that we see Callus in the Bad Batch. And I don't know if this is going to go, I don't want to jump ahead to your future question, Ari, but I totally forgot that like that was the thing that we were predicting, Callus being in the Bad Batch, but I'm glad you brought that back up.
Yeah, I don't know if Callus would be in this season or... Okay, to be fair, the Bad Batch is very much... I was expecting way more filler episodes, but they are really getting to it. They're straight to brass tacks. So I do think that it's more likely that we will see the Lasat that radicalized Callus against Lasan than it is that we will see Callus himself, because if we do have more interactions with the partisans, it would make sense. But I still think there's a chance that we'll see him. It seems like a character that's just a deep enough cut that it would be like exciting to see him. But again, as a Callus lover, I would be excited to see him in any capacity.
I think it would be great to see Callus in like Clone Wars style animation. So
yes,
now I'm manifesting it.
Yeah. And also, if we're going back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of building out the Disney building out the larger Star Wars universe, it would make sense to have Callus in some capacity as a way to connect the Bad Batch into Andor. You know, it's so exciting.
Yeah. I was just about to say this could be them setting up, like, because I was thinking about this with Fennec as well, with Book of Boba Fett, is they are trying to provide a little bit more context for these characters so we have a bit more solid material and solid characterization for them going into the shows that they are either starring in or minor characters in or whatever. So I think it makes a lot of sense that they would, if not have Callus there, at least mention him if they are planning to have him in Andor, which would make me feel crazy.
Oh yeah, I would die. I'm already so excited for Andor. like
Truly.
Cassian, my love. And so if they added Gallus, wow, I would
Live action Callus.
I might pass away when that show drops if they're both in it. But anyway,
Alice, my beloved.
Yeah. Okay. Now this is gonna be a fun topic of discussion. I don't know if you guys remember what's next on the list, but this is either going to be Kev's favorite or least favorite part. I'm not sure, but we're going to talk about Crosshair. And we'll do these questions sort of one at a time. Do we think he's going to be saved? And by that, I mean, you know, obviously chip removed at some point. I think so. Is it going to be this season? See, this is the issue. If we knew there was more seasons, it'd be a lot easier to predict. What are we thinking? How's that going to look? What's going to happen? Let's hear your wildest, upsetting predictions. I'm ready. I'm prepared.
I have many thoughts. So until this last episode, I would have guaranteed that Crosshair was going to get a redemption arc. I was like, there's no way that, because before we got the Rex episode, the way I figured it, I was like, okay, we know Rex is coming to the show. Rex is going to tell them about their chips. They're going to take their chips out. They're going to realize that Crosshair still has his chip in, and they're going to go try and get Crosshair, get his chip out so he can come back. And I was dead set on that theory. I'm like, that is what's going to happen, you know. And then we got Rex. Rex took their chips out. But they did not mention anything, if I remember correctly, about getting Crosshair's chip out. And I'm like, guys, he's your friend. You're just gonna forget about him like that. And then we get Crosshair in the next episode, which, by the way, we went 5 weeks. That was over an entire month without Crosshair, and I was starving for Crosshair content. I was miserable. I'm like, where is my boy? Is he safe? Is he all right? I need to know. So we got Crosshair back. They don't mention anything about getting his chip out. I'm like, that's weird. Like, you think they would. And then he gets burnt like a rotisserie chicken, and then
Rotisserie Crosshair.
Yeah, Kentucky Fried Crosshair. And
Wait,
so
that's gonna be the title of this episode, I think. That's too funny. Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah. Yeah, and so now that he looks like Dengar, and he's getting the Vader treatment of, you know, the mask and everything. I don't know if he's gonna get a redemption arc in this current state. But another thing too, just I feel so bad for Crosshair. But before I go into what I go into, I'll let others speak.
So there's actually, Omega did say something during episode 7 that was not specifically about Crosshair, but when it happened, it made me worried about the batch that was there. But then thinking about it, I was like, there's no reason that she would say this unless it had a deeper implication, which was that when she said, just because that surgery to remove the chip worked on Rex doesn't mean it's going to work on Wrecker. And obviously it did work on Wrecker, which made me think, why would she have said that if it was going to work on Wrecker? Right. So I'm very much in the camp that something's going to happen and Crosshair is going to have a moment of clarity where he's like, oh, hey, I shot on civilians and I shot on my friends and shot at a child. Maybe and have a moment of clarity, apologize, and then pass away.
Yeah. Well, because that's another thing too, is that, and I caught this from episode 1, Crosshair doesn't miss. Like, I don't think we've ever seen him miss a shot. So when he missed that shot on Kanan, young Caleb Dune from the first episode, I'm like, there's some restraint there. He's holding back because Crosshair doesn't miss. And then we saw again with Tech in this latest episode. He missed a shot on Tech. He missed that shot on purpose, because we see with Wrecker, obviously when Wrecker chip activates, first of all, he's horrifying. Like having Wrecker with his chip active was horrifying. But I'm glad that it was his chip that went off instead of anybody else of the Bad Batch, because of just how scary he is. He turned into a completely different character. It was really cool to see. I wish that sequence would have lasted longer, but that's beyond the point.
No.
It was fantastic.
Obviously it was
so
very
good.
emotional, but
I was
it was
gonna
so good.
pee my pants, guys. Like, his voice was so scary. I was like,
oh man,
No.
so good.
We see with Wrecker, after he gets his chip out, he's aware of what he did because he apologizes to Omega about it. So that means Crosshair's got to know that what he's doing. And I think he's obviously showing some restraint, because he wouldn't have missed those shots. And obviously, like, he doesn't want this. Like, he doesn't want to be controlled by a chip. So he's got to be miserable. And that just
Truly.
makes me so sad. And now that he's injured and that his face looks like that, I feel so bad for him. I was literally sitting at work yesterday. I work at a golf course. So I'm sitting in the cart barn, just looking out at the golf course, just blank staring, sad about Crosshair's face. Like, I was genuinely sad about Crosshair at work. And
That's so
I
valid.
haven't been this hurt from Star Wars since episode 9, when Snap Wexley and Ben Solo died. And I'm not a fan of the way the show is making me feel. It's not fun.
It's not fun. It's not.
I did not think about the fact that that Wrecker remembered what he did, and I am now thinking about all of the clones who are under the control of their chips being like, yo, like, all of the clones that killed their Jedi are now sitting there like, I know what I did and I'm trapped in my head. And that like, I had always kind of like thought that might be the case, but I never really thought about like, oh, they actually just confirmed that until right now, and now I'm very sad. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh man. Cause like, even if you think about like Rex, like in season 7, when he like tells us, so he's like, I tried to kill you, I'm sorry. And you think about the fact that now he thinks about that probably every day. Ow. I hate it here. So the next sort of Crosshair-ish question I had was, what does a redemption arc / story look like for somebody who's under mind control? I know that's like a very deep question. Because like, really, and it's hard because we don't really know how much the clones are aware of what they're doing in the moment, right? Like, we know they remember it after, but like, in the moment, are they like really fighting against it but still, doing it? Or are they like completely, not in their right mind while they're doing these things? I don't know, because we don't really know. But like, yeah, what would a redemption arc look like? Like, do you have to, because like, I don't know, have you guys all seen, I assume that everybody who's a Star Wars fan is also a Marvel fan. And so, if you've seen like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the TV show, we see the Winter Soldier, basically Bucky, trying to like go around and make up for everything he's done when he was under mind control. And like, is that like the same sort of mind control that the clones have? I'm not sure. But again, like, how do you live with that also? I don't know. There's like so much when you're like, it really wasn't my fault, but also I kind of knew. I don't know. It's a deep question, and I want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, I feel like Star Wars loves redemption stories, but doesn't like to deal with atonement, because it's like, we're going to redeem this character and then they're going to pass away right after, so they don't have to deal with their actions. And so it's like, one, it would be fascinating to see, like, having to see Vader and Kylo, Anakin, and Ben deal with, like, atone for their sins, but obviously we didn't get that. And then at the same time, like, they aren't under mind control in the way that Crosshair is. And so I think it would be amazing to be able to see him be redeemed, and whatever that looks like in terms of him, being under mind control. So I think it's breaking out of being under control of the inhibitor chip. But then I think what's more interesting about his redemption arc is turning it into an atonement arc, and how he deals with what he did. And that's what I think, like, Bucky's story is. And Falcon and the Winter Soldiers, it's Bucky coming to terms with what he did and finding peace and atoning for his sins. And it would be so amazing to see Crosshair do the same thing.
Yeah. I think that would be a really cool arc, especially because, like you said, the other main redemption stories we have in Star Wars are really Vader and Kylo, and they just die. I mean, I guess sort of like Callus is a pretty good redemption story that's like, he actually did the work.
I would say, like, Callus, I think, is the only, again, not to be a Callus stan on main, but I feel like Callus is really one of the only characters that we see in Star Wars that truly has a redemption arc, other than Ventress. But that really, like, that kind of happens at the end of the Clone Wars, but you really only see the effects of it in Dark Disciple, which is the book.
I need to read it.
It's a very good book. I would recommend it.
It's on my bookshelf right now. I gotta get to it.
It's very good. My thing though, I think about Crosshair is, so this is my enhanced clone trooper to dark trooper pipeline that I believe might happen is I do believe now that Crosshair is a little messed up, they are going to make more adjustments to him. And so dark troopers, as I'm sure you guys probably know, dark troopers are basically enhanced stormtroopers that have like special enhanced senses and stronger abilities. In the Thrawn books, in Thrawn Treason specifically, there are 2 dark troopers who are like, yeah, we volunteered basically to get altered to be like 10 times more evil and way better at our job. And I think that Crosshair is going to be like the prototype for that. So I think I would like to see Crosshair have an actual atonement and like see him put in the work of saying like, how do you rectify what you did when you weren't in control of yourself? But I also think narratively speaking, the way that they have set it up in episode 2, I think we saw him fire on civilians, like point blank. And I'm like, I don't know. Like he straight up executed civilians. And I'm like, I would like to see him get a redemption arc, but I don't know how you come back from that. And it's not just because I know that a lot of other characters who have had arcs like that have done things that bad, but the way that they framed it in the episode, it was right there. Like you saw it happen. So it's almost like the way they're framing it shows like, this is pretty bad. And I also think with my Crosshair becoming a Death Trooper pipeline, he is going to continue to do worse things. So I do think it makes more sense for him to, in a sense of Kylo Ren and Darth Vader, have a moment of clarity where he's like, oh, I did some pretty not cool things, and then pass away. Because I don't know how you come back from that.
If they give my boy Crosshair the Grievous or Vader treatment where he becomes more machine than man, I might have to stop watching the show. I don't think I can handle that. That's not fun to think about.
Well, and the Dark Trooper, the Dark Troopers, like from The Mandalorian, Moff Gideon was like, the Dark Troopers, which were the robots, they were like, we realized that the worst thing, like the biggest flaw in our troopers was the person in the armor. So it would make sense that Crosshairs.
This is getting very dark, very fast.
Yeah. I do think, I don't know, this goes back to Crosshair and if his chip gets out and if anything happens with the chip. I think that in this past episode that there was, they did kind of emphasize him becoming Kentucky Fried Crosshair. And it does make me wonder if that had any effect on his chip. And Ollie, you bring up an interesting point saying that they could modify Crosshair, you know, and it's I wonder, are they going to, do they need to modify him again because maybe what happened with the engine turning on and it messed with his chip, and maybe this is just theorizing, maybe he's on Camino with Omega and she's able to break through to him because his chip is malfunctioning a little bit. And it would totally be such a Star Wars devastating thing for us to think that he's almost free and then he's not, and then he gets even more under his chip.
I love that we've all just been hurt so many times by Star Wars. We're just really imagining the worst. Maybe there's a happy ending to all of this. Maybe. I doubt it, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah. Well, another thing too is that Omega is obviously what she was Nalaste's medical assistant on Camino. So she knows, like, you know, medical stuff, and she's seen the procedure of taking chips out. So maybe if she gets alone with Crosshair, I don't know, maybe something good can happen where she gets his chip out. But if you would have asked me before this last episode what I thought Crosshair's redemption arc would have been, I would have said, well, he would get his chip out probably because of the other members of the Bad Batch, and then he would sacrifice himself to save Omega or to save, you know, the rest of the batch. But now I'm not so sure, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I feel like the last episode really kind of opened up so many new possibilities, because I really feel like, yes, we did see Crosshair shoot on civilians in one of the earlier episodes, but like him being like, aim for the kid and let's turn the engine on while everybody's, inside, really kind of solidified like this dark path he's really going down. So it'll be quite interesting to.
It's very much reminds me of a in which you are going to try to deep fry a turkey on Thanksgiving and the oil comes up and splashes you. That's very much what happened to Crosshair with turning on that engine.
Yeah,
it was like, we are going to deep fry the Bad Batch, and then he was like, actually, I am the one who has become deep fried.
Yeah, that was, oh man. That episode was a lot. Before I want to talk about like the ending of the last episode real quick, but before we go there, does anyone have any last Crosshair thoughts?
I just hope it all works out well for him, but it's not going to, and I hate it.
It's okay. Camila has the Bad Batch support group every week live stream, so check that out if you need support, if you're watching it first thing.
We are here for you.
It is truly very helpful. It has helped me cope when I am on the East Coast, so I do stay up to watch the episodes. So it is about 3:30 a.m. when it's over and I'm sitting alone in my room like, man, it's really nice to have this live stream to watch, or I think I might go insane.
Yeah, come join. It's definitely helpful for sometimes Beth and I are just Beth, co-host of the Bad Batch support group at Mara.J.Skywalker, and I are just rambling on and on, but it is nice to know that there are other people out there who are also struggling. So come join.
Yeah, that's the main reason why I don't watch it when it comes out, because I'm like, I can't sleep after this crap. The last thing I sort of want to talk about on this episode of this podcast is the latest episode of The Bad Batch, because I am hurt by the final scene. I was very excited, as was everybody, when we saw Cad Bane again, but then I was like hurt because Hunter really dropped the ball in that.
He drew first. He pulled his weapon out first, but then Cad Bane still shot him first. I was like, Hunter, babes, come on.
And he was so confident. So, like, at this point, I just have to laugh, because if not, I'll start crying.
Hunter, my beloved.
Yeah.
That scene was crazy. Because they're staring down each other like it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
And in my mind, so like in live time while I'm watching the scene go down, I'm like, okay, you have Cad Bane. Cad Bane doesn't lose quick draws. We see him in the unfinished Clone Wars episode with Boba Fett, which was cool that they kind of mirrored that with this. But I'm like, okay, you have Cad Bane, but you have Hunter. Well, Hunter has the enhanced senses, so maybe that will help him in this duel. But you're going up against Cad Bane, and
Cad Bane
so
said,
I'm like,
built different.
Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, I could really see it going either way, but I don't think it's gonna end well for Hunter. And then he gets shot right in the chest, which I thought he died.
Oh, I thought
he died, because
absolutely,
literally gets right in the middle of the chest. We've seen other clones get shot in the chest and die. The only one we've seen that gets hit there and that doesn't die is Rex.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and as the duel, as he gets shot, right, I'm like, there's no way they would kill off Hunter halfway through the season, right?
Yeah.
Right?
When he like doesn't get up right away, I'm like, hey,
yeah.
He doesn't move. That's the thing. He doesn't move.
No, I'm like, there's no way. And then Omega obviously is like, Hunter. And the sad thing too is Omega, because she gets stunned right after, Omega thinks Hunter is dead at this current juncture.
I have seen a couple theories say because Omega is basically an RN, she did check his pulse. So she might know like that he's alive, which would...
I hope so.
But the other thing I'm thinking of is I'm like, how much time did she have? Because she had like 0.1 second. I'm no doctor, but as far as I'm concerned, it takes a little bit longer to check someone's pulse.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she literally had the time for Cad Bane to say, what do you say? Like, sorry, little lady. That
Sorry,
was
little
such
lady.
that was so,
Cad Bane.
so such a
I mean,
classy
like,
man. Wow.
Literally, Cad Bane is built different. As soon as he showed up, I was like, there's no way that this is ending well for the Bad Batch, because he saved Zero the Hutt from prison, held the entire Senate hostage,
Mm-hmm.
won a lightsaber battle between not one Jedi Master, but two, in Obi-Wan and Quinlan Vos at the same time. Like, he's
the definition of built different.
Truly. And I'm like,
expensive to hire. Like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that goes to show just how badly the Kaminoans want Omega back. If they're willing to pay Cad Bane to go get her, she must be pretty important.
Yeah. No. Oh, that scene. I don't think I blinked the whole time because they had that really great like Western sounding soundtrack going, and I was just like, oh my goodness. Another thing too with like, I genuinely did think Hunter was dead, and I was like in shock, because most of the time in Star Wars when we see like clones or stormtroopers or whatever like getting shot down, if they're still alive, they make a point of like making them move slightly, and he did not move at all. And I was like watching, I was like, he's gonna twitch or something, so we know he's not dead. And then like nothing. I was so glad for that point of view shot at the end. That was so cool too.
That very Republic Commandos moment.
That's what I was gonna say. I really like that.
There was a point where I was like, during that scene when they were having that standoff, I was like, Omega, to quote Depa Balaba, run, like get out. And I was like, get away, girl, you can still make it. Just go.
Just run. Uncle Wrecker will pick you up somewhere.
Just fine, just go.
As a side note, when you you're in Hunter's point of view and you hear Wrecker being like, where's Omega? And I was just like, oh my gosh, like his brother's like straight up shot in the chest, and the only thing my man Wrecker can think of is the child. And I was, yes, that's why we stan Wrecker. 100% the best uncle out there. But yeah, I am glad Hunter's not dead. Whew. I think I would have stopped watching.
So stressed. Yeah.
Epic Echo takes over the Bad Batch as their leader moment, though.
Echo is definitely the mom of the Bad Batch. 100% mom vibes.
Yeah, and I mean, he's like that's his whole thing, is that he was like a tactical genius, which was how Rex like knew he was alive. I'm like, he could do it.
Oh, he could. 100%. Yeah. Well, I guess, do you guys have any like last thoughts or predictions? We've kind of just been going through our predictions as we go, but this is last thoughts before we wrap up here.
I have something I really want to see. So we know how they've been bringing stuff from Legends into canon. There's one thing from Legends. If I could see one thing from this show, I want to see the Camino Uprising. So that's from the original Battlefront 2 game. It's basically, if I remember it correctly, the Kaminoans get so fed up with the Empire that they create clones to fight against, the Stormtroopers and the Empire. And I just think that would be really cool to see in canon. In the game, you have Boba Fett kind of leading the Empire, but I think he's too young at this point in the timeline to do that. So they would probably have to change it up a little bit. But to see some clone troopers fight some stormtroopers in canon, in the Clone Wars animation, I think would be super cool. And then just kind of final predictions, I guess. It's not going to be good. I think they're either all going to die, or it's going to be one of them left standing. And I think that would be either Hunter, just because he's kind of the main character, and I could see him kind of being the last one. Or if we're going to go with the domino theory, I think it's going to be Echo. Kind of either he'll be the last one surviving and then die, or just kind of be the last one, being the last domino that falls. I'm preparing for this show to emotionally wreck me. I will most likely be suing Dave Filoni for emotional trauma. And yeah, those are just kind of my final thoughts.
Yes, I agree. I'll join that suing Dave Filoni thing. If I see him at Star Wars Celebration next year, I'm gonna be like, sir, I don't even want a picture with you because you ruined my life.
I love that. Turning down the photo op with Dave Filoni. I have a lot of different thoughts about where this could go. I've been kind of trying to figure out thematically what makes the most sense. And I do believe they're doing so much exposition, and I don't know if that's for the purpose of setting up like, oh, we have not seen a lot of this time period, so here's what it's like, or if it's setting up a second season, because it seems like there's a lot of exposition if there's only going to be one season. That being said, as I've said, I don't think it makes sense for them to still be alive by the time of Rebels and not be in Rebels. I think that we have set up so many cool ant characters that it would make sense for Omega, in the case of something happening to the Batch, to end up with one of them. I do believe that Fennec is going to team up with the Bad Batch because she is, in The Mandalorian, wanted by the Empire. So I don't think she is going to continue to work for them. So I think now we will see her transition from bounty hunter who works to whoever pays her the most to actively against the Empire, and against ISB, who wanted her before. I very much like the idea of Fennec teaming up with them to save Omega because she's mad that the Kaminoans hired another bounty hunter who stole her bounty.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of her going to save Omega. The Batch, something happens to them. She takes Omega in, Omega and Book of Boba Fett.
Ooh.
Which is a theory that at Grunkle Rex, my friend Mel on TikTok, had sort of posited, and it lives in my mind. I would like to see Omega again later. I do think that this show might be like showing the foundations of the rebellion. I think we are definitely going to see more of Saw, and we may see almost like the foundation of the partisans, which I think would be really cool. I feel like on terms of like the personal, like what's going to happen with these characters, it keeps throwing me for a loop. So I really have no idea narratively where it would go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I would love to see more Fennec. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all. That's my thought.
Just more Fennec. It definitely makes sense to me that in the next episode that they would go try to find Fennec, because it's like if they're doing some detective work in their head, thought process is, okay, so who was the last person? There's another bounty hunter after Omega, but it's not this other one. If we find this other bounty hunter, they can get us more information on how to find Omega. So I totally feels like to me that they're going to try and find Fennec to see if she'll lead them to give them more information and then maybe find Omega. So I definitely love seeing more Fennec. Going off of what you were saying earlier, Kev, about a clone uprising on Kamino, what I think would be so interesting and fascinating and cool to explore is the Bad Batch joining that uprising, in the sense that we see at the beginning of the season, at the beginning of the show, the Bad Batch really being outsiders, and how the other clones look down on them, and we never hear the language from the Bad Batch. We never hear that brotherhood language, the way that the other clones talk about, oh, they're my brothers. We never really hear the Bad Batch talking that way. And so I think it'd be really amazing to see the Bad Batch coming to the aid of the clones who didn't accept them, because the Bad Batch is like, it's the right thing to do to come to the aid of them because they've been under the control of the Empire. And that's something that I just would love to see and love to explore. I just want more politics. I just want to see what the Imperial Senate looks like right now. I don't know if it makes sense to the Bad Batch, but then again, there was a whole banking deregulation arc in the Clone Wars, so why can't we get that in the Bad Batch? That's my side hope.
I also think, just to build off that, it would make a lot of sense if we got the uprising on Kamino, then that would be how Kanan finds out that there were chips in Rebels.
Yeah.
So that could connect that in a way that doesn't involve the Bad Batch all dying.
Yes.
Yeah, but I did think in this episode too, we did see the Bad Batch firing live rounds at the clone troopers, which was something they did not do. They only fired stun rounds before.
Mhm.
So it would be really interesting to see them finally be like, no, this is the right thing to do. Let's give them a hand.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting dark. It's getting very dark. And I'm no longer watching it, to find joy. I'm just watching it to know what happened. Because yeah, if I want joy in Star Wars, this is not the place. This is not the place. But I think the Camino Uprising would actually be really cool, and I do like how they're bringing all this because Legends has a lot of really cool stuff. It has a lot of strange stuff too because nobody was really monitoring what was being written in Legends for a long time, but it does have a lot of really cool stuff, and like we've already seen a lot of things come from Legends. So that would be cool. I think that would be really neat. And I'm always down for a good battle and like a good uprising mutiny type thing. So yeah, I would love to see that too. But I think we've covered it, first 8 episodes. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I had a great time. I hope people listening had a great time. I am going to write out all of their social medias and podcast information, all that in the description of this episode. So if you're listening, you should definitely check those out because all 3 podcasts are really great. I listen to them. And I find true joy in them. And I'm sure people who like to listen to me ramble will find more joy in you guys. So please check them out. All that being said, I hope everyone listening is having a great day, night, morning, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are listening. And as always, may the force be with you.